They trained for years. They ran simulations for every emergency. They prepared for every risk the mission could throw at them. Nobody prepared them for the window. For the moment they looked out and saw everything, every person, every war, every border, every city, reduced to a thin, bright smear against the black. Some of them never recovered, not from trauma, from clarity. In February 1971, Edgar Mitchell was 240,000 miles from Earth. He was the sixth human being to walk on the moon. He had spent 9 years training for that mission. His entire adult life pointed at a single moment in space. The mission went exactly as planned. He collected samples, ran experiments, planted a flag. Then he climbed back into the capsule for the 3-day journey home. That's when it happened. He was looking out the window. The spacecraft was slowly rotating, the way capsules do in transit. Every few seconds, a new view swept across the glass. The moon, the sun, the stars, the Earth, the moon again. And Mitchell noticed something that hadn't appeared in any briefing, something no checklist had a box for. He described it later as an explosion of awareness, sudden, involuntary, complete. In an instant, he understood, not intellectually but physically, somewhere deep in his chest, that everything he was looking at was connected, that the molecules in his body and the molecules burning inside distant stars had come from the same origin, were part of the same unbroken process, were never separate things at all. He felt that the universe was somehow conscious of itself, and that he was part of that consciousness looking back. He landed in the Pacific Ocean 3 days later. He spent the rest of his life trying to explain what had happened to him at that window. He couldn't. Mitchell wasn't alone. Not even close. Ron Garan spent 178 days aboard the International Space Station. He called it orbital perspective. Looking at Earth from that altitude didn't make him feel removed from it. It made him feel as though he had never actually seen it before. All the problems that had consumed him on the ground, politics, money, conflict, personal grievance, didn't disappear. They just became impossible to defend. Russell Schweickart flew on Apollo 9. During a spacewalk, he floated outside the capsule and held completely still. He understood in that moment that he wasn't representing himself, or his country, or even the human species. He was, he said, the eyes of the Earth looking at itself. Chris Hadfield said the strangest part of coming home wasn't readjusting to gravity. It was readjusting to the scale of human problems. From orbit, a hurricane is something beautiful. A border between countries is invisible. A city at night looks like a living organism, pulsing and warm and unaware it is being watched. Some of them wept, not from sadness, from something that didn't have a name yet. In 1987, a philosopher named Frank White interviewed 24 astronauts and gathered their accounts into a book. He gave the experience its formal name, the Overview Effect. But naming it didn't explain it. What scientists now believe is that the human brain was never built to process what an astronaut sees. Your brain evolved to navigate a particular scale of reality: the village, the valley, the horizon 3 miles away. These are the proportions your cognitive machinery was shaped for. You can understand them. You can feel your place inside them. Space offers none of that. When you look at Earth from orbit, your brain cannot locate itself in what it's seeing. There are no landmarks it recognizes as relevant to your survival. There is no ground, no horizon, just a sphere, impossibly vivid and impossibly small, suspended in a blackness that has no edges, no floor, and no end. Some researchers believe the brain responds to this by doing something it almost never does. It stops prioritizing the self. The constant low-level noise of your personal narrative, your worries, your plans, your identity, goes quiet. And in that quiet, something else comes through. Neuroscientists call it transient hypofrontality, a temporary reduction in activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that maintains the boundary between you and everything else. The same state occurs during deep meditation, during flow states, during certain profound religious experiences. In space, it happens without warning, without permission, whether you are ready for it or not. And here's the part that never made it into the mission reports. Some of them couldn't put it back. Edgar Mitchell left NASA and founded an institute to study consciousness and the nature of reality. He spent 30 years searching for a scientific framework large enough to hold what he had experienced at that window. He never fully found one. He died in 2016, still searching. Ron Garan returned to Earth and found ordinary life almost incomprehensible. He couldn't stop asking why. Why the borders? Why the conflict? Why are we treating each other this way when from 250 miles up there are no sides at all? He wrote a book. He gave speeches. He kept going back to the same question. Edgar Cernan was the last human being to walk on the moon. He came home and found the world felt too small, too loud, too focused on things that seemed, from where he had been standing, not to matter. Others withdrew more quietly. They became harder to reach, not broken, just elsewhere. But here is what's strange. The overview effect is not a psychological disorder. Not one astronaut has ever been grounded because of it. It does not appear in any diagnostic manual because it doesn't impair function. If anything, it deepens it. The astronauts who experience it consistently describe the same shifts: less tribalism, more care for the planet, an inability to treat the small divisions, the ones that drive most of human conflict, as real. What looks like coming back wrong might actually be coming back right. Philosophers who study consciousness have argued that what the overview effect produces is something humans have been reaching for through meditation, through prayer, through philosophy for thousands of years. A direct, unmediated experience of interconnection, of the self dissolving into something larger without disappearing. Most people spend their entire lives reaching for that and never quite arriving. These astronauts got there. Through a window, by accident, in about 30 seconds. You will almost certainly never go to space. But every astronaut who has experienced the overview effect says the same thing. They say, look at the photographs. Not quickly, slowly. Find a photograph of Earth taken from orbit and sit with it. Not the screensaver version, the real one. The one that shows the atmosphere as it actually is. A thin, pale blue line at the very edge of the planet, barely thicker than the skin of an apple. That line is the only thing standing between every living being on this planet and the void pressing in from the other side. Sit with it until something shifts. Mitchell believed the universe is not indifferent to us, that something 13.8 billion years old had eventually produced a creature capable of looking back at it and knowing what it was seeing. That recognition, he said, was the universe becoming aware of itself. You are part of that. Right now, in this room, under a sky you have probably not looked at carefully in weeks. The window is still there. So yeah, this was my first video on the channel. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll be bringing more videos like this, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.